A detective sat across from him at a breakfast table. They had been following him for days. They knew something was wrong, and John Wayne Gacy looked the detective in the eye, smiled, and said, "You know, clowns can get away with murder." Then he finished his breakfast. 2 days later, they found the first body under his house, then a second, then a third. By the time they stopped counting, there were 33, and the man who put them there had been shaking hands with politicians, hosting neighborhood barbecues, entertaining children at birthday parties, dressed as a clown. His name was John Wayne Gacy, and everyone loved him. It was December 1978. Des Plaines, Illinois. A 15-year-old boy named Robert Peast had gone to meet a contractor about a summer job. He was a good kid. His mother's birthday was that night. He told her he would be right back. He never came home. She called the police. The police found the contractor's name in their records. John Wayne Gacy, 36 years old, successful businessman, respected community member. They knocked on his door. He answered with a smile. The smell hit them first. Something underneath the house. Something wrong. Gacy explained it away. Old plumbing, moisture, normal for older homes. The detective nodded, but he didn't leave. He got a warrant. And what they found beneath the crawl space of that ordinary house on Summerdale Avenue changed everything. Workers in hazmat suits dug through layers of lime and soil. The crawl space was only 3 feet high. They had to dig lying down. One investigator later said it was the worst thing he had seen in 30 years of police work. Not because of the violence, because of the numbers. 33 bodies. Most were teenage boys and young men. Most had been there for years. Some had families who spent years wondering if their son had just run away. Now they knew. John Wayne Gacy was born March 17, 1942 in Chicago. His father was an abusive alcoholic who belittled him constantly, called him stupid, beat him with a leather strap. Gacy desperately wanted his father's approval. He never got it. He moved to Springfield in his 20s, married, had children, joined the JCs, and threw himself into community work. He was named Outstanding JC of the Year. His father finally told him he was proud. 3 months later, his father died. Gacy never recovered from that. In 1968, everything collapsed. Convicted of sodomy against a teenage employee, sentenced to 10 years. His wife divorced him. He never saw his children again. He served 18 months. Paroled for good behavior, he moved back to Chicago, to a quiet house on Summerdale Avenue. And he started over. He started PDM Contractors, successful almost immediately. He hired young men, teenagers looking for their first job. He threw elaborate parties for the neighborhood, cooked for dozens of people, became the man everyone called when something needed fixing. He volunteered for the local Democratic Party. He was photographed shaking hands with Rosalind Carter, the wife of the President of the United States. The photo hung proudly in his living room. The First Lady had shaken hands with a man who had already committed murder. He also became Pogo the Clown. He performed at children's hospitals, birthday parties, community events. He designed his own costumes, practiced his makeup for hours. He told people at parties, laughing, that clowns could get away with murder. Nobody laughed harder than he did. He was not joking. He killed his first victim in 1972, then again in 1974, and again. And again. For 6 years, the bodies accumulated beneath his house, beneath the crawl space packed with lime, beneath the floors where he hosted dinner parties and Christmas gatherings. When the crawl space ran out of room, he drove to bridges over the Des Plaines River at night and dropped the bodies into the black water below. He told friends the smell was just the humidity. They believed him. Everyone believed John Wayne Gacy. The investigation moved fast after Robert Peast disappeared. Detectives found his prior conviction, red flag. They put him under surveillance. He knew he was being watched. He kept killing anyway. He called the surveillance team and invited them all to dinner. He drove around for days with police following him, visiting friends, attending a wake, stopping for breakfast. He waved at the officers following him. He seemed completely unbothered. On December 19, 1978, he sat across from a detective at breakfast, calm, charming, smiling, and said, "You know, clowns can get away with murder." He finished his coffee, paid the bill. 2 days later, they had the warrant. 2 days later, they had the bodies. The trial began in February 1980. Gacy admitted to the killings. His defense was insanity, multiple personalities, blackouts, an alter ego called Bad Jack. The prosecution dismantled every piece of it. They showed the crawl space, the lime purchased over years, the careful disposal in the river when space ran out. This was not madness. This was patience. This was planning. The jury deliberated for 2 hours, guilty on all 33 counts, sentenced to death. On death row, Gacy became something that disturbed everyone. He took up oil painting, sold his work for thousands of dollars. He painted clowns, he painted skulls, he painted himself as Pogo. He gave interviews constantly, shifting his story each time, sometimes admitting everything, sometimes claiming he was framed. He received thousands of fan letters. He answered many personally. He called himself a victim of the justice system. The families of his 33 victims had nothing to say to that. Of the 33 bodies found, only 26 were ever identified. 7 remained unknown for decades. 7 young men with families somewhere who never knew what happened to them. In 2011, Illinois State Police launched a new effort using advanced DNA technology. Over the following years, more families received answers, but not all of them. Some of Gacy's victims still carry only a case number, no name, no grave, no closure. Just a question that has been asked for decades and never fully answered. On May 9, 1994, after 14 years on death row, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection. His last meal was fried chicken, shrimp, French fries, and a pound of strawberries. He told his attorney before they took him, "They're not putting me to sleep, they're killing me." At 12:58 a.m., he was pronounced dead. Outside the prison, the crowd cheered. The house on Summerdale Avenue was demolished in 1979. A new house was built in its place. People who live nearby today sometimes find strangers standing on the sidewalk outside, just standing, looking, because some places hold something that concrete and paint cannot cover. Some crimes leave a mark that does not wash away. John Wayne Gacy was not a monster who looked like a monster. He was a businessman who won civic awards, a neighbor who cooked for the entire street, a clown who made children laugh, a man who shook hands with the First Lady of the United States, and beneath the floor of his house, 33 young men who trusted him, who thought he was going to give them a job, or a ride home, or a fresh start. They trusted him, and it cost them everything. John Wayne Gacy painted himself as a clown. He said clowns could get away with murder. For 6 years, he was right. If you're still watching, you already know the next story is worse. Subscribe, because the darkness on this channel has no bottom.